You're not going to unsubscribe if I'm not as pretty as other YouTubers, are you? I've reconsidered. All right, you guys. I know the face reveal has been a long time coming, and here it finally is. This is my face. Not awkward at all, right? Don't worry, the talking head style video is not going to become the norm for this channel, but there is a not so secret that I think many of you do already know about. In fact, I know for a fact that that's true, but I wanted to go ahead and address head on. If you haven't already guessed by the title of this video, which should be a pretty good indication, or this glorious Model Y dust shield signed by many of my old previous coworkers that was gifted to me, I was employed at Tesla for a little over 6 years actually, starting in 2016 and ending about a year and a half ago. So why am I telling you this? Good question. It's because I have some pretty big plans for this channel, and to execute them means that we're going to have to get to know each other a little bit better. So in this video, I'm going to do my best to describe what it was like working there, and also how this YouTube channel came to be, while also dancing around my still very active non-disclosure agreement. Doesn't that sound like fun? Like many others, my career at Tesla started on the assembly line. Specifically, the Model S and X line, because remember, the Model 3 was still just a twinkle in Elon's eye in 2016. So I was there for multiple cycles of the now famous production hell, and indeed was one of the people working the 12+ hour shifts, often 6 days a week, but honestly, I was passionate about the mission and knew how important the work I was doing was. So even though it was definitely more work than I had ever done before, it somehow didn't feel like it. And a side benefit of that is that working so much actually gave me very little time to spend my money on dumb things, which, as my wife will tell you, is no longer the case. And I will say that Tesla is a place where people take notice of your passion and the work you're doing, and your career doesn't get hindered just because you didn't go to college or something, which I didn't, by the way. And the work I was putting in allowed me to progress through the ranks fairly quickly and allowed me to get a little bit more income, which then I immediately gave back to Tesla when I purchased my dream car at the end of 2018. You can see me picking it up here at the Fremont Delivery Center in the middle of the night when they still delivered cars inside the building. I had always wanted a Model S. It was my dream car ever since they first released, and working around them all day made it just that much worse. And since the stock was doing a bit better than it was the years prior, I felt like I finally had enough to put a decent down payment on it so my monthly payment wouldn't be too bad. And oh, yeah, hindsight is 2020 on that one. I don't like to think about it. Where were we? Ah, yes, my employment. By the end there, I was a team leader for what I like to consider a tactical SWAT team at Tesla that set up automated vision systems around the factories to improve quality. And I'll tell you, we were damn good at what we did. Now, the NDA is still going strong, so obviously can't tell you much, but what I can say is it really was a dream job for me. I got to work around cutting-edge technology all day, around like-minded people who were incredibly intelligent, and I genuinely loved being at work. My coworkers really were like my family away from family, and I'll get into the reasons why I left shortly, but first, probably best to discuss how this channel came to be. It all started when the Autopilot team gave employees and select public beta testers permission to start sharing videos of the software on their social media pages. And this was back in the very early days. And people did start releasing videos, but they were all kind of like handheld phone videos and not the greatest quality. So I figured I'd give making videos a shot, and started kind of releasing the videos that I would want to see. But what I didn't expect was what this channel was about to become. And for that, I sincerely thank you. And before we get any further, I want to be very clear about one thing. Tesla never had any input whatsoever on the types of videos that I was making, which I think is probably pretty clear if you watched the kind of videos I was releasing at that time. I mean, I was doing wacky things to try to break the software, like taping up cameras and putting tinfoil on my bumper to blind the radar just to push it to the limits to see what would happen and torture it until failure, because I don't know, I thought it was interesting, and those are the kind of videos I would have wanted to see. Which brings me to the helmet. Now, the helmet actually wasn't to conceal my identity from you guys, it was to conceal my identity internally at Tesla, because Quite honestly, I didn't want the attention that came with a YouTube channel. Even though I technically had permission and knew I wasn't breaking any rules, I knew that I also was kind of walking into uncharted territory, especially when the views started coming in. And of course, there were employees who knew. I mean, my car was sitting in the Tesla parking lot every day, and seeing how the name of the channel is my license plate, not exactly something that's easily hidden. And I even did give some of you guys hints in earlier videos, like this one that was filmed in the employee parking lot, and did get some messages from people who figured it out. Most of my coworkers ended up figuring out in the end as well. One such example that I remember very well was when a quality engineer who I had known since I started on the assembly line, but who I ended up working much more closely with later in my career, came up to my desk one day and straight up asked me, "Are you the AI driver?" And when I laughed, he had his answer. He told me he had been watching for a really long time and always thought he recognized the voice and saw the car in the parking lot, but never put it together until that very day, which felt pretty awesome and was kind of how I wanted to keep things. A bit of an open secret. If you knew, you knew, and if you didn't, that was just as well, because I really didn't want the extra attention. But now that I've left the company, the helmet really isn't necessary anymore, and I kept using it just because that's what I was used to, and I kind of made some memes out of it, but I think we're ready to move on to the next chapter. Which brings me to the reason I left my dream job. It actually all started with a thought that turned into a bit of a virus in my mind, and that thought was a pretty simple one: that I would really love to have a dog. And I know that has to sound pretty stupid, but it really made me think about my current situation and where I was going in life. I absolutely loved what I did, but I was starting to realize just how much time I was spending away from my real family and how impossible it would be for me to ever have a dog, let alone a kid or something. And little did I know, the universe was about to throw me some curveballs that made it very clear where my priority should be. Now, I'm not going to get into specifics about what exactly those curveballs were, but they made me rethink how I'm spending my time in this simulation that we call life. And to be perfectly straight with you, it was not Tesla's fault that I was spending so much time away from the people that I loved. It was actually the soul-crushing commute that lasted between 4 and 5 hours every day, because at that time I could not afford to live closer to the factory, which had absolutely nothing to do with me purchasing a Model S, I assure you. And before ending this video, I'd like to thank Tesla for giving me the opportunity to work and grow in such an amazing environment. I think the 6 years that I spent there taught me way more than any college degree ever could have, and let me develop real skills that can be applied anywhere in life. So if you find yourself passionate about the mission of transitioning the world to sustainable energy, would highly recommend applying at Tesla, because the sky is truly the limit. I came in as a nobody and left with my fingerprints all over those factories, and it was a time in my life that I can look back on with a huge amount of pride. So yep, that's my story. And guess what? I finally got a dog. This is Honey. We adopted her from a San Francisco rescue shelter, and to everybody's surprise, a couple weeks later, she started multiplying. So I'd also like to introduce you to Fluke, our little surprise. I'll tell you, things are pretty good now. See you in the next one, guys. This is what the vloggers do, right?